So I had this job proposed exactly 6 months, and it could work a lot better. It's pretty sluggish. I definitely noticed a decrease in performance from when it was new. So needs a service. Take it all apart, clean it up, re-lube it, and I'll just give you my thoughts on the whole experience. Don't know if you guys can see that, but this is pretty dirty right here, pretty gunked up. Should be nice and clean there, but there's just a lot of dirt that's gotten in there. So here's some of my thoughts on this shopper post after riding it for 6 months and now tearing it apart and servicing it. So I will say the most confusing part about this, and maybe something they could improve, would be the seat post or the saddle clamp. It's a little interesting getting the saddle in here, but that could just be my saddle because there's like no space here. That could just be my saddle getting it in there, or it could be this design, I don't know. But either way, this thing right here, the lower part, it can go in either direction, which is really annoying because you could put it in a certain way and it might work, but it's not necessarily the right way. It's not going to be clamping on it very evenly and whatever. But the right way you want to do it is you want to have this small part, you know, where it's less angled. You want that facing forward, and the long part points towards the back. This way I think it distributes the load a little bit more evenly, so when you're like leaning back on the thing, the weight can kind of sit back down in here a little better. That's just my hypothesis, but it's got to be in there that right way to do it. I don't really have any complaints about it. It just works. I guess it just works. It's really smooth. I think within like the first month of using this, I had a weird crash where I hit the saddle on the ground, like, you know, the bike like flipped over and like the saddle slammed into the ground. And then ever since that, there was a little bit more like side to side play, but it didn't, like, it still wasn't noticeable, and it didn't affect the performance at all as far as I could tell. It was still solid, but just something to keep in mind, I guess. After a month or two, I can't remember how long, after a while it started making this weird creaking sound, and it would go away if I took it out, or took the seat post out and like re-greased along here, just greased it up and then put it back in, and then it'd stop creaking. And then last month I noticed that this was loose on here. Like, I could have spun it off by hand. It was so loose. It was probably like this. So like you could move it like that. And I think right here you can see it's kind of like the coating's worn off. It's kind of damaged there. So that was probably moving around a little bit and creaking whenever I'd sit on the saddle. I don't know if that was just loose from the factory or if it just worked its way loose. I'm not entirely sure, but another thing to keep in mind, if you hear creaking, it might be that. So after taking this all apart, I noticed this this nylon cord, it's kind of getting frayed right here. I think right here, this is kind of a sharp edge, and it goes in here and over. It goes in here and over. It's kind of a sharp edge there, so maybe it's rubbing against that. Seems to be built really solidly. I don't really have any complaints about the way it's engineered. Everything seems to be very precise, very high quality. The brass keys don't really have any deformation or wear on them as far as I can tell. So that should be good. The grease they used inside was white. Don't know what kind of grease it was, but it seemed to be pretty smooth. The weird thing is, this seal, it causes a lot of friction on the stanchion. So if you can keep the seal lubricated, it works really smoothly. I use this work loose lube. It's amazing. Get it if you have a bike with suspension. It's really, really nice. Okay, now let's see if I can get this whole mess of components back together the right way. Bad news. It broke. Remember where it was frayed up here? This cord? Yeah, well I went to pull down on this to test it out and it snapped. I don't know if that's because I put it back together wrong or if that was bad design. Oh well. To be continued. So I think I figured out why that broke. So when I was putting it back together, this must have come undone. It's supposed to sit right there. But when I took it apart, I found it sitting right inside that little hole there, which is not good, because that means instead of the cable riding really nicely right over that little roller, it was just like getting scraped apart on top of there. The hole kind of just has this really sharp edge on it, and it cut it, so that's the problem. And I just need to figure out how to get that thing apart, and then maybe reattach that to the end, because there's plenty of slack in it left over at the bottom, so see if I can get that fixed. Okay, so now I got it fixed so I can put it back together. Again, top tip, when you're reassembling it, slide this along the plastic spacer thing inside of it. Slide it all the way down as far as you can. And then there's little notches in the plastic thing that line up with the brass rods. And then also, this little white plastic spacer at the end, make sure those bars line up with the rods as well. And then that way, this little groove in it that the string goes in, that's lined up perfectly. Everything's all lined up really nice, and it will work a lot easier when you slide that back on. And then also, this little guy, don't really grease it or anything. That was a mistake I made last time that I think caused it to break, as I dabbed a bunch of grease on there as lubricant. You don't need lubricant, but I was like, whatever. The thing is, I think when I put a bunch of grease on here, it allowed the string to kind of stick to this and then pull it out. I mean, you can see it just like barely sits in there. It's not very hard to pull out, so don't put any grease on it like I did. Okay, as you can see, works nice and smooth. I didn't take a before video, I probably should have, but it was really slow. Probably something like this. Well, I can't even make it go slow, but it was really slow before, really sluggish, really inconsistent, so that definitely worked. can't feel any play in it right now, so I guess we'll just see what it's like on the bike, but for now I think it's all good to go. If you like this video or thought it was just plain old entertaining, then think about giving it a like and subscribing. Thanks for watching.